Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Well, all you citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of June 20th. And this is for the second half of our show. I've known this fellow for a long time. Used to be a customer at the Heartland, helped me out a little bit on some projects. And since then, he's had an illustrious career working with jazz musicians, jazz clubs. And it turns out he has a new book out or coming out. He is the one and only Andy Pierce, originally from Indiana, now up here in the north side of Chicago. So good day to you, Andy.
Hey, Michael, you have a great memory.
Well, you've got a new book coming out. So it's about the Uptown Theater. And I think, it's really close to the Riviera Theater, which still operates. The Uptown has been dormant for a long time, but I do think I saw some shows there. I mean, I could mix up the Riviera and the Uptown, but it could have been Bob Marley. It could have been Jesse Cullen Young. And I remember going to the movies back in the old days in Uptown, and we saw the Hank Williams story. And I think that played at the Uptown. But you have more information than anybody on the planet about the Uptown Theater. So tell us a little bit about your project and your book and what's happening.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but I'm still learning too. And I'm sure the Hank Williams story would have been very popular in Uptown at the time, right?
Right. Yeah, we showed it. We used to show it at joint community union meetings. We were organizing people who were mainly Southern whites who had come up to Chicago from various mountain states, et cetera. And we'd have meetings, and we ended up doing rent strikes and marches on the police station. But for more fun, we showed the Hank Williams story, and we did pack our office a few times with that. That's cool.
Yeah, the Uptown book is something that I thought I would find on the shelf when I got interested in the 1990s. Once you see the building and understand what an important landmark it is, you would think there would already be this book out there to tell you all about it. And, coulda, shoulda, would have done it 30 years ago, but met the right team and got it together, and the book is going to be available this August for the 100th anniversary of the building. It's really a deadline that kind of set itself that if you can't do this book by 100 years, maybe you weren't the right guy to do it. But there's a couple things that got it started. And one was an announcement of a project that didn't end up happening in 2018. The team kind of got together then and talked about it, but when the project didn't take off, the book didn't either. This time, about a year ago, I pulled the team together and said, hey, we really should do this so that it's in hands for the August anniversary, which is 100 years, 1925 to today. So over the past year, we worked on it and we got it done. There's an author on the north side who lives in Uptown named Robert Lorzell. He had written a lot about the Green Mill, and researching the Green Mill led him to the Riviera, led him to the Uptown. And I could see that he was verifying or dispelling the things that we had talked about for years. And through keyword searches, he's able to do better research than could be done in the past. And if you want to find out if somebody played at the Uptown on a certain date or year, it's more easier to search that. The tools that are available now are just much more extensive than we ever had in the past. So as I saw him writing the history of the Uptown, I asked him, hey, can you hold back and let's put this in a book? And he agreed to be the co-author on it and really wrote the history of Uptown, the neighborhood, and the building from dirt till now. And it's impressive. I wrote the introduction and helped round up all the photographs. I've been tracking all these years the people who took the photograph, from 1925 to the present. And there's a lot of work out there, and the publishers were good about assembling it all where it really looks cohesive. And you see the passage of time from 1925 to today.
Andy, let me jump in here. You mentioned the Green Mill. which is still ongoing. It's a jazz club of some renown. Back in the day, as I recall, Frank Sinatra had performed there. And Uptown was an upscale kind of neighborhood. A lot of people here in Chicago think of it as, a poor neighborhood. There's a lot of single room occupancies, a lot of homes, there's been a lot of rent strikes and, attempts to improve the neighborhood. But back then, you had it was flourishing back in the 40s, I know, and the Green Mill still endures. When did the Uptown Theater actually close?
It closed after a Jay Giles Band concert, December 1981.
So that long, it's been that closed that long.
Right.
Do you remember, and in the book, is there any talk of Jam Productions, who I think still, I don't know if they use that name, but do musical events? They had talked about getting the Uptown and reviving it. And, what I heard about over the years, there were a number of attempts to revitalize the really beautiful old place that just were put on shutdown because it was too expensive.
Yeah, it is incredibly expensive. Jam has an incredible history with the building. They did a lot of great rock shows there in the 70s and up till 81. And it's an LLC with Jerry Michelson that owns the building now. And I think he came to own it in 2008. So, I can't really speak to the financial challenges that they face. It is a privately owned building. It's not a non-for-profit. It's not owned by the city. And, the renovation cost that was talked about in 2018 was $75 million. And we know that everything's more expensive since the pandemic. So now it's talked about in excess of $100 million.
So if you were a betting man, you would probably say it'll never get revitalized.
I hope that it will. And, this city does great things and big projects. And we seem to be able to build condo towers and sports stadia. So I think we can do the Uptown once the right team and financial people commit to it.
Why do you think that the Uptown merits a book?
Oh, that's a really good question. All of this information is out there, right? And through the keyword searches of newspapers, magazine, trade journals, we could find it all. It just wasn't all in one place. And, Chicago History Museum has a lot of great pictures and information, and Theater Historical Society has a lot of great pictures and information. We pulled Chicago Tribune has beautiful photos of it in 1925. And this had never been put into one place where, somebody who's casually interested in it could look at it. A student who's doing a history project, I get those calls, I guess it's sixth grade, where everybody's got to do a history project. A lot of kids like to do a project on the Uptown Theater or the Uptown Entertainment District because they see these buildings and they're largely for adults, right? There aren't a lot of kids shows happening in these big theaters and the Aragon Ballroom, but they're curious because they're big landmarks in their neighborhoods. And the real joy for me in this, Michael, is this is going to end up in libraries across the country. It's going to be in the Chicago Public Libraries. They have 12 copies ordered, and they're all on hold right now as soon as they get in. People already want to read this. So the joy for me is that anyone can educate themselves about it, why it's there, what it was used for, how it came to sit vacant since 1981, and what it might be used for, or how it might happen in the future. And if, the current generation or generations doesn't get it done, then maybe it'll inform the next. It is a city landmark. We've decided as a city that we're not going to demolish it, that we're going to preserve it and reuse it somehow.
Well, Andy Pierce, as a guy who's got a book coming out on the Uptown Theater, how did you become interested in this project? I mean, you mentioned that you saw that your co-writer is, had been writing about it, but what brought you to the project?
You mentioned earlier that I'm originally from Indiana. When I moved to Uptown in March of 1995, I lived in a studio on Carmen Avenue, east of Sheridan, not far from Big Chicks. And as I was walking one morning to, get some breakfast, I happened upon the Uptown Snack Shop, had a great, affordable, clean, hot breakfast there.
Is that the same place that you got me some plates from?
Yeah.
Out of business. I still use those plates.
Yeah, me too.
I had them first at the Heartland Cafe, and then now they're at my house.
You like those platters. So I walk out of Uptown Snack Shop, which was Broadway and Leland, and I look north and I see a theater marquee. And I'm like, hey, you picked a great place to live. There is a theater right here. And as I walked closer to it, I could see it wasn't in good shape, right? There were a lot of posters all over the front doors. It was boarded up. It was clearly in distress, to the point, Michael, that it looked like a movie set. It looked like Hollywood had created a distressed theater sitting there, but it was real. And like many people going by on the L, I came to realize that the front of the building I was looking at with the marquee and that lobby was not the theater, that the really big building in the back is the theater. And after you look at photos and floor plans, you realize that it has 3 lobbies and the auditorium. It's just a gigantic building. So I came to it naively. I could not have told you what a movie palace was or why it was built, but I came to learn about it through my curiosity and looking at it. And then eventually I met the volunteers who had been in there a long time already, helping keep it from falling apart.
You mentioned that we know it showed films in there at some point, or at different times, as well as musical performances. Has it ever been used in a film?
Yeah, it's been in a number of movies. The top ones I can think of are Backdraft, Home Alone 2. There was a movie called I Love Trouble, I think with Nick Nolte and Julia Roberts, that used it. And it's been in a lot of music videos. The most recent one was with Regina Spektor on piano and a Joffrey ballet dancer. It's just beautiful. If you look that one up online, it's well worth the watch. It's incredible, both the artist and the location. Other movie. The more recent movie was like Transformer 4 or something like that with Mark Wahlberg was in the building.
What's your favorite thing in the building?
Boy, that's a good question. The favorite thing
in your book that's coming out?
Well,
be the same, maybe not.
One of my favorite rooms in the building is the Magnolia lobby. So it's like the second lobby. You enter through the grand lobby. It's the big one that you see in the pictures, like here. This is the grand lobby.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have a picture queued up of the Magnolia lobby, but it's a little smaller scale, and it would be the grand lobby in most theaters, right? It's smaller than this first lobby. It's the second lobby that's behind the auditorium. And if you went all the way through it, you'd end up out on Magnolia Avenue. I just like the decoration in there. It's some people would call it Spanish Inquisition. It's just fantasy, and it's a lot of fun. My favorite thing about the book is actually a photograph of workers on site. We don't have a lot of construction photos, and we only have a few that show any workers on the site. We have steel frame photos that show iron workers walking on the high beams, constructing the auditorium. But my favorite one is a group of electricians. They're on the floor of the auditorium. It's not yet finished, and they're holding a string of of decorative lighting they're going to install. And you can look in those faces and see all the mutts of Europe. You can see all the immigrants that were there working and putting that place together. And by their dress and their hair and so forth, you can tell who and where they rank in the crew, age, income, the whole story of America is there in just that group of electricians working on the building. And that to me is the best part.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. As you know, my partner in this radio show and in the Heartland, Katie Hogan, her dad was the chief electrical inspector and wrote the electrical code. So I'm going to, that'll be a great thing to show her.
We'll get a kick out.
It's actually out. As someone who has put out a few books myself, they're my photo books, and is working on a book along with the aforementioned Katie Hogan on a book about the Heartland Cafe. And I've had a number of people on the show who have put out books. Some have big name publishers. Some are just doing it on their own. How did you do this? Did you find a publisher, and how did you afford to put it together?
I can say there is no way it would be the big, beautiful coffee table book it is without the support of City Files Press here in Chicago. They do great books on Chicago history and Chicago photography. And the fact that they took it on and saw it through is the reason it's going to be the high quality that it is. Neither Robert or I were paid by them to do anything. You know, big, beautiful coffee table books don't make financial sense. You know, it's pretty much an at cost kind of thing where they hope to recoup through sales, you know, printing 1,800 copies of it. So we did fundraise through our nonprofit so that we could pay photographers and we could pay some of the expenses. And, you know, when you use photos from archives, you don't just steal them, you pay for the usage. So there was a bit of fundraising there, and then the rest is really with the publishers taking that risk that people will be interested in the book. I don't know what I could have pulled together by myself, but I can say that it would not have been the high quality that they did. You know, the builders and Baldwin and Katz said that this building was for all time. I really think we've made a book for all time. It does ask the question, you know, can a book help save a building? Can this light the fire of a movement to find a way to fund this and get it started? So there is an open-ended question in the book that we could follow up with a volume 2. And I can tell you we collected enough information for about 5 volumes. We used every square inch in this book and got as much in it as we could in information and photos. It is jam-packed, but I can tell you there's more to tell and share. And if it got restored, just imagine the pictures of, you know, the renovation work and the completed thing in another volume.
Oh, that'd be great. I hope that happens. I mean, I do hope it gets rebuilt at some point, but maybe the city will do it. Although with the lack of funds coming into Illinois under the regime in Washington, I'm not sure how many extra projects we'll have, but I think we'll return to good times. And I'm probably, if I was a betting man, I would bet somebody will do something with that theater at some point, some way.
Me too. It really has to be an act of altruism. You know, it doesn't take too many millionaires or billionaires to make a relatively small project like this happen. Before we wrap up, Michael, I want to point out in the photo that's behind me, one of the things that makes a movie palace, among many other things, is this lighting. You know, they could control the mood of the room through the music and the movies. And imagine being in here and it's a love scene and all these lights go purple for love or red for war or blue for night or, you know, pink, orange, yellow for sunrise. They had a big lighting board in the back where they controlled this. And it really was a 360 immersive thing that encapsulated the audience. It wasn't just what was happening on the stage or screen. They could do all of this, and much of it still works, as you can see in this picture, to, set the mood, if you will. And this was all intentional. They wrote about it in the 20s. This was a marvel of its time to alter the color of the lights in the room. They didn't blind you. It was very subtle, but it was all part of the experience. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I like lights a lot. I like neon. I like lights, light shows, all that kind of stuff. And it looks pretty wonderful behind you. You know, I'm curious, given that just a block away, there's another movie theater called the Riviera. It's still being used for musical events mostly, I believe. And I'm wondering what you know about the Riviera and how the two compare.
The Riviera was built by the same owners and architects just a little earlier. And those stage houses sit back to back. So you kind of have the beginning of the Movie Palace era. And then you've got kind of the later era where they got really big with multiple thousands of seats, multiple lobbies and so forth. So it's kind of like beginning of the era and then toward the peak of the Movie Palace era, back to back there. Riviera's kind of got smaller lobbies. It's smaller capacity. It's really about how big the show is and how big the audience is. Uptown's over 4,300 seats. They talk about making it 5,000 seats because there's plenty of room in there. So it's really more on the level of Rosemont Theater more than Chicago Theater, and it's most direct comparison in the area. It was bigger than Medina Temple, and I can't think of what might be this capacity now. But, this is not a stadium, but it's a very large theater.
Andy Pierce, let's get a little more information on the book. What is the website? When is the book coming out? How much does it cost? How do people order it in advance? That kind of thing. Well,
the good news for your viewers is that it's $10 off right now. So if you go to City Files Press online, you can get it for $10 off right now.
And it's
cityfilespress.com.
Coming out when?
They are on their way here. We should have them in hand in 2 or 3 weeks. You'll probably get it before the August anniversary. You can always go to uptowntheater.com for all our good work, and then also the Uptown Theater Chicago on Facebook.
Andy, this has been fun. I always like talking to you, and I have been seeing you more often lately. I'm wondering what you're currently involved with. I know you're doing some stuff around jazz, if you want to share that, and if you have any other projects in mind.
Oh, that's a great question, Michael. I have a lot of information on Fred Anderson and the Velvet Lounge, and I really hope that that's one of my next projects. If there's a publisher watching and that sounds good to you, let's talk. I also have a lot of information about Jerry Oliver and the Palm Tavern. I've always wanted to put that together. These projects are not dissimilar from the Uptown book, where I know the information, I have material, and I know where other, great photos and stories are. I just need the time to put it together, like everybody, right? The challenge is finding the time. So, I also help book some shows in Chicago for Fred Anderson Park and some other venues. So always like to stay up with the creative music. And I've got a great radio show that airs on Sunday nights on WDCB at midnight. And that's all the creative jazz and avant-garde. It's called Another Place.
Yeah, that's the last time we had you on the show. You were talking about your DJing with the jazz.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, Andy, and I'm really glad that we decided to have you on. I have to put in my order for that book. I'm looking forward to it. I drive by it. I've got photographs of the front of the Uptown, and I think I have photographs of Fred Anderson when he was at the Heartland. You have a copy of that.
I'd like to see those. The book is called The Uptown, Chicago's Endangered Movie Palace, and it's available from City Files Press. It will be in bookstores, online, and in libraries near you.
Right on, brother. Well, you keep doing good in the world, because the world needs all the good that you do. And
thank you, Michael. You too.